I really hate using mineral spirits. My Nana just got me a really cool gift that I'm gonna start using on all of my furniture flips, so thanks, Nana. It's time for the final reveal. Hey everybody, welcome to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren, and today we're gonna be tackling another French Provincial flip with a scraper and a sander. If you've been around a while, you know that I have a love for French Provincial dressers. Sometimes they're white and I like to paint them, sometimes they're wood and I paint them, but this time we're not gonna be using much paint. We are going to be completely making over this dresser in another way. From first glance, this French Provincial looks to me like it's solid wood, but we will find out once we get going a little bit farther. First things first, we need to go ahead and remove the hardware. I will be keeping this hardware so that I can put it right back on when I am finished. All right, now that all of the hardware is out and the drawers are out, we have got to clean. So as you can see underneath the hardware, it is completely dusty and filthy. This is exactly why it's very important to remove the hardware before you clean, because if you don't, once you remove it, you're just gonna have to clean over again. So I would rather take the hardware off and clean it separately, and that way I can just clean the whole surface of the dresser at once. I also get a lot of questions on why I clean before I sand, and the reason is exactly because of things like this. If I didn't clean this off, my sander would just grind that down into the surface, and then that would just grind the grease down in there, so therefore it would be really hard for the paint to adhere, because paint doesn't adhere to grease and oils and things like that. So let's clean. I am just using a bottle of Simple Green. This is, I've found, has a really great degreaser, and it's just really easy to spray right directly on the surface and then wipe clean. So I'm looking back here, and my plan kind of rides on this piece being solid wood. So I was checking it out, and it looks to me like it is solid wood. You got to come in the back here to check, and sometimes this piece, the top here, is more like particle board or MDF, which won't have these wood grain marks. But since this has that wood marking, I believe this is going to be solid wood, but you can see this thin layer of veneer at the top. So I want to be careful when I am sanding that I don't bust through that, but at least I do know that it's solid wood underneath. So that this is a really quality piece of furniture. I actually just looked at the drawer, and it's Thomasville. So that means that it is a very quality and nice brand of furniture, very well made. And I got this for $50 on Facebook Marketplace. All right, it is time to sand now that the cleaning is done. So for this dresser, my idea is to remove the finish on the entire thing. It's very dark right now and it has a lot of flaws and imperfections, so I want to fix that. And I am going to be starting off with my Surf Prep sander and using an 80 grit. This is different than the sandpaper I usually use. This is actually a netting sandpaper. So this is going to be basically a stronger version of an 80 grit sandpaper that's really great for stripping back finishes. And depending on how tough the finish is to get off and also how far I'm going through the top veneer, I am going to have my carbide scraper on hand. That also will aid me in scraping back that finish. I would typically recommend that you wear a face mask to mitigate any dust particles that will be coming from your sander. I do have mine hooked up to a vacuum dust extractor hose here, and I'm gonna have that on, plus we're outside, so I'm not gonna be wearing my RZ mask, but if you are interested, I will leave a link down below for you, and you can use code FFT10 for 10% off if you need an RZ mask for protection. So far I've gotten about a third of the way done, I would say, and it's taken me about 8 minutes, so not too shabby. That's with just the netting here on my Surf Prep sander. I want to try out my carbide scraper and see if I scrape some of the finish off before sanding, if that kind of makes the process go a little bit quicker or not. So I haven't used one of these just yet on a piece of furniture. I did use it, I think when I was refinishing the stairs in the Airbnb, but I believe all you do is apply some pressure and scrape back the finish. I don't want to do too much. Whoa, that was not a fun noise. So it's definitely working. Let's see how long it takes me to do another third here. Okay, so that was scraping. That took me 1 minute. A little bit of elbow grease, but I do still need to sand it to get to look this same way. All right, so that section, third of it, took me 4 minutes, including the scraper and the sander. So a little bit of a quicker method. You do have to have some pressure, some elbow grease with this, while the sander does the job. You just have to control it a little bit if you're just using that. You do have to still have the sander because this doesn't get the color out of the wood. This scrapes the finish off. So just keep that in mind. I'll link this and this down below as well. This is from Amazon, probably about $25. And then this is my Surf Prep sander, and you can get 10% off with FFT10. I forgot to time that one, but not very long at all. So I am going to be moving on to the rest of the dresser. You may be wondering why I'm not using a furniture stripper like Citrus Strip or any other of those strippers. Well, the reason is because I just don't like the big messes that they cause. I really hate using mineral spirits, and I just prefer not to use them. So this is actually going faster, in my opinion, than it would if I was using stripper. This scraper really sped up the job a lot. So I'm going to be using this as much as possible on the rest of this dresser. Any flat spaces, I mean, this can pretty much get. So let's go to it. Now that I've got the finish scraped off of the body of the dresser, I'm gonna move on to my Surf Prep sander, and I'm gonna go ahead and just get the rest of that finish off, sort of like I did for the top. Now, I want to talk really quick about Surf Prep and their product line, because it's not only just this, pretty expensive sander that they've got available. They also have some different foam abrasive pads. You guys have seen me tons of times using the foam abrasive pads, which really allow me to contour to the different curves of the furniture and things like that. And the Pro Foam and their foam abrasive pads allow you to do that because they're squishy, so they will really contour. Now, this fits directly onto the 3x4 sander, but not everybody has one of these sanders. I highly recommend that if you are in the market for a sander and you're really serious about furniture flipping, this sander is like a great investment for your business. But there are also other options if you're not quite ready for a Surf Prep or you just want to test out some of their foam abrasive pads. So 2 options on their website are for the foam abrasives on the orbital sander, which is right here. This is perfect for any orbital sander that has either 8 holes or 5 holes. You can choose on their website. They've got different thicknesses of the Pro Foam, so you can either have like a thicker one, which is going to be a little bit easier to go around the curves, or you can have a little bit more of a thinner one, which is a bit more dense, so it's not going to curve as much, but it'll still really help you not smooth out those and straighten out those curves too much. So that's an option for an orbital sander, and all of these come in fine grit, super fine, medium, so you have a pretty wide array of grits there with the Pro Foam. Also, a great thing to have on your tool belt is a mouse sander. This gets into the small corners and things like that, which the Surf Prep 3x4 does a pretty good job at as well. But Surf Prep has the availability of a mouse sander foam pad. So again, sort of like with the orbital, you don't have to buy a Surf Prep, but they do have the thicker Pro Foam available as well as the little bit thinner one. So whatever sander you guys have, it's a great idea to invest in some Pro Foam pads for the sander that you currently own, and you will just see that it goes around the curves super well. And I think that the integrity of the curves of things like French Provincials and other types of styles is really important to keep. And Surf Prep found a way that we refinishers are able to do that. So this will really help you out on your projects. So for this dresser, since I've already got the finish basically off, I don't need to go with an 80 grit. I am gonna go with a 120 to 150 grit, which is a medium, but I'm doing the Pro Foam, so it can sort of contour to these curved edges. So to get around these tiny, tiny edges with really small curves without damaging this top layer of veneer, I am using a contour kit that I got off Amazon. There's 11 of these different little sandpaper holders. And what you do is you just get the one that is going to closest match your curve size. So this one's 1/4 inch. And then you'll put your sandpaper around it like so. So this is an 80 grit because I'm removing this finish. And then I'm just going to go along inside that curve and rub my sandpaper, and then it will remove that finish. Top is sanded with 80 grit and everything, all of the finish has been removed. So now I'm going to move downward just a little bit, and there are some cracks, some crevices that I need to get in really good with my sanding contour thingy majigger here, and so that I can get that darker finish out of there so that it can look more like the lighter finish. Okay, the base of the dresser I would say is about 85% done, but I'm kind of tired of doing the detail sanding right now. So I am gonna go back to my scraper and tackle the fronts of the drawers. They are flat surfaces, so this should work really well. And then I'll probably just have to come back with the detail sander around the edges here. But this, again, should get a majority of that finish off, just like it did on this guy. All right, so that initial sanding on the drawers is done after I've scraped it, but there are a few dark spots still in the corners and the different crevices around each drawer. So similarly, when that was going on the big dresser base, I'm gonna take my contour sanders and get really good inside those crevices. So up until this point, I've been using 80 grit sandpaper to strip the whole entire finish off after I used my carbide scraper. So now that we've got all the finish off in all of those nooks and crannies, I'm going to be moving up in grit, which is gonna be a finer grit of sandpaper. So I was using either an 80 grit or like a medium grit, and now I am going to be going up to about 120 to 150, and then right after that I'm gonna go to a 220. This is going to smooth everything out and prepare the surface for the paint wash. All right, 7.5 hours of sanding and scraping later, we are ready to move on to our next part. I can say that I will not be doing that on very many pieces going forward, but this is gonna be so totally worth it. And there's not much time left in this process, so the 7.5 hours was well spent. I am going to be giving this a paint wash. There are a couple of reasons why I think that this dresser in particular needs a paint wash. Although I absolutely love the way that it looks now, it still needs to be top coated. And with a top coat, it will definitely change the color of the wood. The reason it needs a top coat is so that things don't seep down into the wood as time goes on, whether I put water on it or just our oils from our hands and things like that. It's important to put a top coat even on raw wood pieces. I am going to do a paint wash so that I can keep this color or very similar color even after the top coat is put on. So I have chosen a color by Lily Moon Paint. It's called Cozy Latte, and it's a very neutral grayish color. So it's kind of a gray, tan, beige. And again, I am going to do a wash. So that means I'm going to water it down with some water, and we're just going to paint the whole thing and wipe it back. I like to have a little container on hand, like a cottage cheese container, yogurt container, and then pour a little bit of paint. So since I've got my paint in there, I'm also going to pour some water. I'm going to do about a 50-50 ratio to start out. Then I'm gonna just mix it up, and it's gonna look pretty funny because it's mostly water. So it's not even gonna represent paint anymore aside from that color. It's gonna be very liquidy. Might even add a tad bit more. I don't really want a ton of color added to my piece. I'm really just going for a light wash here. Then I like to have these white lint-free cloths that I will wipe my paint wash back with. I like to start out with a brush, and I'm just gonna brush it over the whole top because I wanna make it all even. To start, I like to, and I recommend that you wet your surface. I like to use this mister bottle. You could also apply water with a brush if you wanted to do that. This will just really help the paint wash soak in and not be too potent on the top here. If it does dry out before you make it to that section, just go ahead and wet it again so the whole surface is the same. Okay, and now that it's sat here for a little bit, I don't want it to soak in too much, and I can always reapply another coat if I need to, but I'm just gonna wipe it back with my lint-free cloth. It's always important to go with the wood grain as well when you're doing a paint wash, when you're wiping it back, just because if there is any chance of the streaks from your rag showing, you'd rather them be going in the direction of the wood grain as opposed to opposite, because it's gonna be a lot more noticeable. I'm gonna go ahead and continue that same exact process that I did on the top on the rest of the dresser and the drawers. am done with the paint wash. And again, the point wasn't to really change the look too much. It was just to eliminate a lot of that yellowness that was the wood tone. So now we'll let this dry just a tad bit longer and we'll do a top coat. So for the top coat on this piece, I decided that I'm going to spray it. It's just going to be a lot quicker. I'm going to do several coats. So this is the best method I've found to get a nice, even, streak-free top coat finish. I am going to be using Lily Moon's top coat. They call it Stellar Shield, which just goes along with their whole theme of their paint line. It's a low luster finish, so almost like a satin finish. Not very much gloss to it, but just a tad bit of shine, which is perfectly okay with me. I typically don't like too shiny of a finish. I am going to be straining it as well, just to get any possible chunks out so that it goes through my sprayer really well. Time to reassemble. So I've got my hardware here and I'm just going to be kind of cleaning that as I go, as I put it back on. I'm not really looking to change the look of the hardware. You could, if you wanted it to be brass again, you could use Barkeeper's Friend or something like that, but really my goal is just to literally clean the germs off of it. I actually really like the patina on the hardware and how it goes really well with the now much lighter bleached look that I have on my drawers. So I am going to keep it that patina look. Time for the final reveal. Okay, before we get to the final reveal, actually, my Nana just got me a really cool gift that I'm gonna start using on all of my furniture flips. So thanks, Nana. She got me a stamp, a rubber stamp that says Furniture Flipping Teacher, Omaha, Nebraska. And then it left room for me to write my name, sign it, and then also the year or the date that I created this piece. So this is my first time using it. I know I've got to apply a lot of pressure. So here we go. Hopefully I don't mess it up. Oh, that's cool. Okay, and then I'm gonna write here 2023, and then I'm gonna sign it. Cool, thanks Nana. All right, just a little reflection time here. This piece came out like exactly how I was thinking, except I think even better. It was a lot of work, you guys. It was a lot of scraping. It was a lot of sanding. I spent 7.5 hours doing that. But to get this result, once finished with all of that, like I can't express to you how excited I am that my hard work paid off and it looks just stunning. I mean, I absolutely love it. You don't always have to paint pieces. I did paint a little bit just to keep that wood tone, and I am so glad I decided to do that instead of just top coating it without doing that paint wash. It doesn't even look like I did a paint wash, but it's that original wood color just because that paint wash sort of dumbed down that yellow that would have popped through a lot if I would have done that top coat. So all in all, I believe we're about 9 hours in because the paint wash didn't really take long, neither did the top coat and then assembling it. So really not too bad for a $50 piece. And I don't know how much I'm gonna price it at. I think it's honestly gonna be a game time decision when I am listing it on Facebook Marketplace. Neiman is telling me $1,000.
No. North of $1,000.
Neiman is telling me north of $1,000. I don't know yet. I do have someone that's already interested in it, so I am gonna send them some photos and maybe I'll feel it out with the pricing on her, but we'll see. I'm really excited to list this one and see how my market takes it. It's just absolutely beautiful. One thing I do want to say about this scraper is that you kind of want to make sure that you are doing it on a piece of furniture that is absolutely solid wood. It really wouldn't work well with something that is made of MDF or particle board. Now, if it has the wood veneer and then the particle board, you're a little bit more on the safe side as long as you don't go like through the veneer. But if you've just got like a really thin piece and then it's like MDF underneath, just be really careful with that carbide scraper. This was absolutely solid wood. There is no particle board, no MDF, so I was totally safe using that scraper straight up. So just something to keep in mind. However, I've never used it on another piece of furniture before, so I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's at least what I came away with for this piece after using that for 3 or 4 hours. It's time to get some photos of this guy so I can list it on Facebook Marketplace and we'll let you know when it sells. So after about 10 days of being listed, this puppy is sold. The person who is buying this dresser is actually gonna be coming in about a week or so to pick it up. They're from Kansas City. We've lately been getting a lot of inquiries from Kansas City, and whether we deliver it down there or they come up here, it's really only a 3-hour drive there and then a 3-hour drive back. So not too shabby. For the numbers on this piece, I did go ahead and humor Neiman and I listed it at $1,025 on Facebook Marketplace for about a week. And I honestly had no hits. So I think just this moment in time has been pretty slow for me, and I've heard it from a lot of other furniture refinishers that it's just been pretty slow. You know, we're in a recession and things like that. We're getting out of it, so hopefully things will start looking up soon. But right when I lowered it to $650, I ended up getting several people interested, one committed fully, and we've got that Venmo deposit. And then, of course, right as I sold it, I had more and more inquiries. But all in all, we're in this around $60. I got the piece itself for $50, and then really not too many materials needed to go into this. I mean, I used sandpaper. My carbide scraper, though, really helped me save my sandpaper because I was able to get that first layer of finish off with just some elbow grease and some hard work. And then, of course, the paint wash and the top coat. But again, we really didn't use too much of either one of those. So all in at $60, sold for $650. So we are at a total profit of $590 on this guy, which I think is a pretty decent price for this piece and for all of the time that I put into it. I didn't put as many products on it, but I kind of sacrificed that with some more time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this flip. It was one of my favorites, something that I've never done before, something that I would like to do again, but maybe just a couple months down the road. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, all of the links are down below in the description, and we'll see you on the flip side.